You find a ring. It's half buried in the mud by a riverbank, and when you pick it up and wipe it off, it doesn't look like anything else you've ever seen. It doesn't rust. It doesn't tarnish. It doesn't rot, crack, or fade, even after sitting in wet dirt for who knows how long. Every other object you own eventually breaks down. This one just sits in your palm, glowing faintly in the sun, looking exactly the way it did the day it was made. And that should feel like good news. You just found something valuable. Except the people around you don't look relieved. They look terrified. Today, if you found gold, you'd probably post about it. Maybe get it appraised. Definitely tell your friends. For you, gold means money, luck, a good day. But for most of human history, finding gold wasn't good news at all. It was one of the most dangerous things that could happen to you. And the story of why starts with the exact thing that makes gold so appealing in the first place. It doesn't die. Every material humans understood in the ancient world followed the same rule. Wood rots, meat spoils, skin ages, bronze goes green, iron rusts into dust. Everything decays, everything returns to the earth eventually except gold. Gold sat in the ground for thousands of years and came out looking freshly made. To people with no concept of atomic structure or oxidation resistance, there was only one explanation that made sense. Gold wasn't part of the natural world at all. It was something that had escaped the rule that governs every living thing. And if it doesn't follow the rule of death, that raises an uncomfortable question. What did it take to get out of it? In 1972, a construction worker outside the Bulgarian city of Varna hit something hard with his digger. What he'd found was a cemetery, and archaeologist Ivanov spent the next several years excavating it. Inside one grave, grave 43, belonging to a high-status man, they found over 990 gold objects. It's the oldest gold treasure ever discovered anywhere on Earth, dating back roughly 6,600 years, 1,000 years before the pyramids of Giza existed. And here's the detail that changes the whole picture. Some of the gold objects in that grave weren't worn on the body. They were placed directly onto a symbolic figure, a clay or reed representation of the dead man, positioned exactly where his face, hands, and torso would have been. This wasn't decoration, it was an attempt to give a dead man a body made of the one material that doesn't die. So if gold could hold off death, that should make it the safest material on Earth to touch. Instead, it did the opposite. Because getting gold out of the ground meant going somewhere that already smelled like death. At Nahal Qanah Cave in Israel, archaeologists found gold rings dating back roughly 6,000 years, among the oldest gold objects ever recovered in the Near East. The cave itself wasn't just a mine, it was also used as a burial site. The people extracting gold from that rock were doing it in a space already occupied by the dead, in near total darkness, breathing air that barely moved. Ancient gold mining wasn't a job you walked away from clean. Miners in the ancient world worked underground for weeks at a time in tunnels too low to stand in, with no ventilation and failing torchlight. Cave-ins were common, so was suffocation. The historian Pliny the Elder, writing in the 1st century AD, described Roman gold mines as places where the mountain itself seemed to fight back against the men digging into it, tunnels collapsing without warning, workers crushed under rock they'd spent months clearing. And there's a reason gold mining specifically, more than almost any other kind of ancient labor, was reserved for slaves, prisoners, and the condemned. Everyone else understood exactly what going into the ground after gold actually cost. Because the ground didn't just give up gold for free. It poisoned the people who took it too. Extracting gold from raw ore in the ancient world often meant working with mercury, using it to bind with tiny gold particles so they could be separated from crushed rock. Mercury vapor is invisible, and prolonged exposure destroys the nervous system. Ancient gold workers developed tremors, memory loss, and eventual madness, and nobody around them understood why. All they saw was a person goes into the mine healthy. They come out shaking, forgetting their own name, sometimes never coming out at all. From the outside, it didn't look like poisoning. It looked like a curse. The gold had gotten inside someone and taken something from them in return for what they'd taken from the earth. So by the time gold actually reached a village, in a ring, a mask, a burial mask like the one later placed over Tutankhamun's face, everyone already understood the price that had been paid to bring it up, which is exactly why so many cultures decided the only safe thing to do with gold was give it back. Across Bronze Age Europe, archaeologists keep finding gold hoards buried in bogs, riverbeds, and remote fields, gold that was never recovered, never spent, never worn again. And a strange number of these objects show something specific. They were deliberately bent, folded, or broken before they were buried. Archaeologists call this ritual killing of the object. The gold wasn't lost. It was executed, then returned to the ground it came from on purpose, as if the object itself had to be put to death before it could be safely let go of. Some researchers believe this was payment, a trade with whatever force lived underground, to make sure it didn't come looking for what it was still owed. And it wasn't only Europe. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Americas and began stripping temples of gold, several Aztec accounts recorded by chroniclers describe the material with something closer to disgust than reverence. One widely cited account translating it as the excrement of the gods, not treasure, waste passed down from beings who had no use for it themselves. To the people who'd lived alongside it for centuries, gold wasn't a prize you kept. It was something the gods had discarded, and something you handled at your own risk. Even ancient Egypt, the culture most associated with gold in the modern imagination, treated it as something categorically different from a possession. Egyptian religious texts describe the flesh of the gods themselves as being made of gold, not gold jewelry worn by gods. Gold as the literal substance their bodies were built from, which meant touching gold wasn't just risky, it was touching divine skin. Tomb builders inscribed warnings on certain burial chambers, threatening consequences on anyone who disturbed what lay inside. And while the modern idea of an ancient curse striking down archaeologists is mostly exaggeration and coincidence, the belief behind those warnings was completely sincere. The gold wasn't there for the living. It was there so the dead could keep being gods a little longer. So here's the full shape of it. Gold doesn't decay, which meant ancient humans decided it must not belong to the world of decaying thing. Getting it out of the ground meant descending into darkness, cave-ins, and poison that looked exactly like a curse, taking hold of a person's mind. And once it surfaced, entire cultures independently arrived at the same solution. Don't keep it. Bury it, break it, bend it, burn it, or wrap it around the dead, because gold's whole purpose was undoing death. And the only thing worth undoing death for was death itself. You still want gold the moment you see it. That hasn't changed. What's changed is that you don't think about where it came from, or what it might have cost the person who pulled it out of the ground first. Somewhere under a cave floor in Israel or a burial mound in Bulgaria, someone already worked that out for you 6,000 years ago, one ring at a time.